Welcome to A Bevy of Bloods, a fan podcast of the Sydney Swans Football Club. My name is Chris, and joined today by Noddy. In this episode number 59, we are going to review the Sydney Swans 2023 pre-season and players. So to all you Cygnets and Swanlings out there, fluff up your tail feathers and settle in for a potentially biased yarn about all things to do with our beloved Bloods. Noddy, mate, how are you? Pre-season is here. We've got 1 week before the big show. How are you going? How's the nerves?
Yeah, good, mate. Pretty nervous as we're going to go through. Obviously, we had a short pre-season. We had 2 scratch matches, basically. One not so good and one quite good. But yeah, so I think in terms of the quality of the opposition we played, they're both going to be, certainly the Lions are looking like they're looking very good. And the Blues, they're probably going to be in the mix as well. So it was good to have a couple of hit-outs. And, really, really nervous and excited, but I'm hoping we can hit the ground running. How are you going, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. I'm pretty pumped about this year. I think it's kind of come on a bit faster than I anticipated. We were in January, and now we're talking about football in a few days' time. So we've kind of come in a bit slow into the season, but yeah, my nerves, I'm getting all sweaty all over again. So it feels like we didn't really leave it, does it? It feels like the grand final was days ago. Yeah,
that's it. I'll tell you how I started to get on track for the season. I think the Swans are releasing a bunch of new era caps, and I'm looking at them.
Hats.
Oh my god, I'm on the wait lists. I've got I still only have one head. And I continue more and more to purchase more and more hats. So I will never learn.
Any fans that don't know out there, Noddy has, I don't know, Noddy, how many?
It's crazy. I think it's like 30 hats or something.
Yeah, and that's just Swans related hats, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and then I have a bunch of other American sport hats and Japanese baseball hats. And
yeah, he's got a genuine problem.
Bit of a sucker for it, yeah. But there's a beautiful looking one that's like a white top of the hat and a red brim.
No, that's the one I like, dude. You always.
I'm getting I'm not. I'm always getting the hats first, and then you're getting them.
I only pick one hat once a year, and it always seems to be the one that you freaking like. So
well, they only release a couple, so chances are there's going to be some overlap. And the thing is, I'm probably going to buy all 4. So we'll just I'll send you a text and say, mate, what hat are you wearing tonight?
Yeah,
we'll coordinate our outfits. Yeah.
Coordinate to be the same, you mean? I get it.
No,
I like it.
Because you're the one who don't want to wear the same hat as me, so I'll make sure you know what hat I'm wearing, and we can wear different hats, so we can be 2 unique personalities and not the same. But
I'm a big fan of beanies, but the problem is there's just not cold enough in Sydney to warrant having a beanie every other day. So, yeah, I think that's one thing.
I also love beanies, but I genuinely look like a thug when I put I'm out on probation sort of stuff. So I tend to avoid them, but I also do like the look of the various Swans beanies that they release. But anyway, we're rabbling on about me. Yes, we do.
We had a plan. We've already gone off it. So anyway, the plan, Cygnets and Swanlings out there for this little pre-season chat that we're doing a week out before the games all start is to actually go down the list of players from highest to lowest, from number 46 all the way to number 1, and just basically have a brief chat about all of them, see how they're going, how they're progressing, how the veterans are playing, and just get a sense of how we feel the season's going to go for them and what our aspirations are for each one of those. So without any further ado, let me get straight into it. So number 46 is Lachlan Stretch McAndrew. Now, Noddy, I know you're a big rock man. How do you feel Stretch is going on? How is he coming along?
Mate, I'm a massive fan of Stretch, and I saw a bunch of VFL games last year, and I just loved what I saw. Like, he's very physical. He obviously brings that rugby background. He's a giant of a man, and he had 2 good hit-outs. I think, he was one of the players that was called out by Coxie against the Lions, even though it was an eventual blowout. They beat us by 45. He battled hard, quote unquote. And then obviously backed up again against the Blues the week following, and we won that obviously by 44 points. So tale of 2 cities. But Stretch did well in that one as well. I think he went off with a little bit of an injury, but I think that the fact that We'll get to Hickey in a moment, that he's obviously injured at the moment. And, we've got Laddams, who looks like he's had a good preseason. Again, we'll get to him. But to have someone like a developing prospect, 210 centimetres, who is a genuine contender in the ruck and only still quite new to the game and young himself, is exciting. How about you, mate?
I mean, 22 years old for a ruckman is unbelievably young. So he's got a lot of craft to learn.
Yeah.
But yeah, everything all to hear about his development, this is coming along really well. One thing that the Swans has always been wanting is solid ruck depth, definitely in the modern games. And with Hickey playing around, he's already seems like he's 150 years old and just cranking on every single week, just getting through a game. So we really missed Laddams last year, a big chunks of it. Didn't see enough of him, I feel. So we really want him. Let's talk about him later. But to see Stretch to kind of come on in, maybe have some options there in the ruck, maybe solidify himself a little bit of a spot there with some injuries coming through from those two other big men. Yeah, would love to see it. Really would love to see it. Do you see him getting much game time early in the season?
Well, I think pending the injuries from the Blues match, I don't know how serious it was. I think he played out the game, so I think he's okay. I think it's a massive opportunity for him because obviously with Hickey down and the fact we lost Cal Sinclair and Naismith, unfortunately, didn't, after all those knees, we are very, very light on for ruck depth. So it's basically a huge opportunity for him to step up. You'd think when Hickey's good to go, he'll come in and Laddams, they'll roll out the two rucks. But until then, if he can stay fit, he's going to have a great opportunity to get some, first class experience. So, he's still young, he's still developing, but yeah, it's exciting times. I think. So in answer to your question, it's forced through the current injuries and the fact we really don't have that much ruck depth. But I think by the sounds of it, his preseason was going pretty well anyway, so he might have been pushing for a spot regardless. So, really happy and, I'm very bullish. I think I said in the group to the bevy that I think he'll be our starting ruck by the end of the year. Nice. Obviously, it was a massive comment, but
huge call, yeah.
But that obviously that depends on how many games he gets under his belt and whether or not he can stick with him at the top level.
Cool. Okay, good to hear. I back everything you say there. Now, moving on to number 45, Hugo Hawkayan. Is it Kayan or Kahan?
Not sure. I'm running with HHK.
HHK. I'm going to go with Hawkahan because I think it sounds wicked.
Hawkahan.
Pick number 11 for the Swannies. It seems like Port Adelaide was keen on him, but we got ourselves involved.
This is a mid-season or pre-season draft, I think.
I think this was one of those pre-season drafts. I thought.
Yeah, rookie draft. Yep. There you go. Yeah,
rookie draft. Yeah, so
mid-season rookie draft. There you go. Didn't even know there was a rookie draft for the mid-season draft. Oh God, I thought it was just all thrown in together.
Soon enough, there'll be the free agency draft. All the agents are dying to pump up their numbers. But so he's a small forward, or what? A small forward, a medium-sized forward. Always useful to have some of those players around. The word is that he's a little bit of an excitement machine. So 19 years old only, 188 centimetres and already 82 kegs. So a pretty good size for somebody who's pretty young.
Yeah, man, I think I remember reading when he was taken that he played at a school, I think, one of those schools, those Melbourne grammar schools.
Sandringham, I think.
Is it? Is that the feeder club? So I think he went to Matty Lloyd. I just remember Matty Lloyd saying he was quite a good player, but he had a few injuries in his senior years. So, but he came back to it, and we picked him up obviously because I think he can run through the wing, and it's good to have a mid tall target in the forward line. But yeah, I think he was listed in some of those extended squads for the preseason, but I don't know. I watched closely the Carlton game and only saw highlights of the Brisbane game. But yeah, I didn't see him too much. Yeah. So I think he's another year of development ahead. So
the likelihood of seeing him on the ground this year might be limited, but I think he's probably got another year of development before we see too much more of him. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree, mate. He's probably got a solid year of VFL ahead, and if he can show us what he can do there, then you never know. 2024 it could be HHK.
Apparently he's bunked up with Logan McDonald, Chad Warner, Dill Stevens and Corey Warner. So
good Lord.
He's in with some pretty good kids and a lot of talents in that household.
The house of fun.
The house of fun, no doubt. All right, well, let's move along to a absolute veteran of the game, one of the more consistent players, and really came into himself in a slightly new role. We're talking about, of course, number 44, Jake Lloyd, the defender extraordinaire. Mate, what do we say about Jake? How do we feel his season went last year, and what are we thinking about for this year?
Oh, look, I just think he's one of these players that Horse loves. I reckon he's probably one of the first players that his magnets up on the board each week. I know he cops a bit of criticism, like he can be a disposal king, and they can be pretty cheap, with kickouts. But as we've touched on in our group before, kick-ins is one of the hardest acts of the game. There's a lot of pressure, so you really want a cool head and an experienced hand guiding. And I think he's just one of these players for us back there in the likes of Rampy and Cunningham. So, look, I whatever his role is this year, again, we're going to be going through these younger guys that are coming through. I think we'll see early on in the first month of footy like what the balance is going to be. So I'm genuinely interested to see how that is going to play out as well. But I just know that you've got your really good structure when you've got Lloydie down the back with ramps basically barking orders. So.
Yeah, look, I think there's been a bit of a chatter around the traps about whether he keeps his role back there. I think there was, the beginning of last year, he kind of wasn't himself, or at least maybe he was showing up a bit in his position. I don't know exactly what it was, but I mean, he kind of invigorated himself, being a bit more two-way. He's a defender, but he played a very offensive, defensive role. But it definitely seemed like his tackle pressure was up. He joined the strategy of the Swans back there, which is to put more pressure on those forwards, be a bit more tackling, and just really made himself an integral number of that backline all over again. So I'm kind of with you. I think his name is on the board week in, week out until he can, we find he gets an injury and then loses his spot like some of the other boys have happened in the past, but which we'll talk about in a moment. So, yeah, that's I think he's a lock-in for week 1. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Beauty. All right. Number 43, Lewis Melican. Now, who can? Melly can. What he can't do is keep a spot in the side, unfortunately. Mate, what do you think about Melican as I take my cat out the door one sec?
Mate, he's just one of these players, a bit like Sammy Reid. He's just had a few unfortunate injuries at the wrong time. But I think he'd probably be a starting key defender in most other clubs, certainly in the bottom 10. So I was a bit surprised that he wasn't of more interest in the last trade period, given that we made it pretty clear that we were looking to bring in another key defender. And obviously went out and found Aaron Francis, who can admittedly play that swing role. It's probably that fitting in for Sam Reid going forward. But yeah, you wouldn't like to be a key defender in the Sydney Swans backline at the moment because we're gonna get to Gould, and he is the big question mark there. But yeah, it's unfortunate for Melly because I think as we all remember, he's had a couple of really fantastic years to start with. Was amazing lockdown offender, just huge pressure, and then I think he had a couple of soft tissues, hammy and calf, maybe a hip. I think in a preseason last year, but yeah, look, I mean, it's all about a depth play at this stage. I think one thing we're looking at outside of ruck, we've got pretty good depth, certainly in the back line. So I think pending injuries, he'll be ready to go. But yeah, I think if I were him and his manager, and he doesn't get a good run this year, then yeah, I'd be looking elsewhere because he's a genuinely good footy player.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. Like, I mean, if we are looking at some of the players that are maybe kind of seeing some limited time, not from skill, but just from maybe some injuries, getting a bit older, you're looking at Rampy. And you've got Robbie Fox to kind of come in as well. You've got Campbell probably asking for a spot in that back line, albeit in a different role. But Melly is a kind of a different one. I remember there was between him and Aaliyah going back and forth a couple of seasons ago, trying to get that one of those last spots in that back line. And I think Aaliyah forgot to turn up the training or something. And Melly just solidified his spot until he got injured. And he played quite well, and he moves around pretty good for a big boy. So it's a bit of a shame to not see him on an AFL pitch. I was surprised that he didn't get moved on in the off season like you. So let's see where he ends up anyway. And I think where we end up is talking about number 42, Mr. Robbie Fox. Mate, Robbie Fox,
Yeah.
where has he come from? What has happened with this guy?
Fantastic, Mr. Fox. So
That's
Tassie boy,
right.
but obviously he was one of our best players on ground for the grand final last year. And it's funny, we think about him, we think he's evergreen, like he's just so fit, right? But he's also in his late 20s, so he's sort of in that category of Rampy, Lloydie, and Cunningham. But he just seems like this sort of unbreakable fitness machine.
I think maybe he's played less AFL games, so maybe he hasn't been batted around as often. Yeah,
that's it. And Rampy also had a late start, so his body is probably slightly better for it. But yeah, look, he's it's obviously announced that he's injured and he'll miss the first couple of games, so that is a shame. But as you just touched on, massive opportunity for probably BJ. Braden Campbell, but we can get to him when we get higher up the list. But yeah, I think once Fox is fit, he's an immediate pick based off his form last year.
Yeah, he does play a few different roles. Like you mentioned, he can run a lot. He's a very, very good runner.
He can do anything. He can. I reckon he could play every line.
Yep, he'd be up there.
Yeah.
It's surprising that we haven't used him in the swing up forward, I guess. But
I guess he could probably do a Ryan Clark and tag give it an offensive tag. But he's able to do it all, I think. But I think he's probably most exciting off the halfback.
Yeah, definitely. Because of his, I don't know, just his general skill set. He's got some good brains about him. He moves really well, like you're suggesting, sideways as well. Kind of picks the game. He knows where to be. The more time he got on the ground, the more we realised he's just a solid piece, and it's like, do not move him. So, what do you reckon, mate? When he's good to go, has he got a walk-on start onto this game?
I think so. It'll depend how the rest of the back line is at that point. As we said, like if we've got Rampy, Lloyd, and Fox in the back, as that's three elder statesmen, and then the rest is, we'll get to them, but most likely Tommy, Paddy, Blakey, and then Ollie and potentially Juzzy if he pushes back from the wing. But and then of course Cunningham, who's starting to look like he might be able to do it all himself. But anyway, we'll keep working through.
Yep. All right, moving on to number 41, Lachlan Rankin. So Lachlan Rankin, a defender, otherwise known as a bit of a utility player, 182 centimetres, and at the ripe young age of, 18, 19 years old?
He was taken
20. He's 20 years old. So still only a younger kid, but what do you think? What's been the word around with him? I understand that he's got skill sets to burn, and we just need to see him on the ground a bit more and probably put a bit more weight on.
Yeah, I think, he was taken a couple of years ago, late in the draft, but they obviously like what they saw. I saw his highlights reel, and I genuinely couldn't tell if he was a left or a right footer. So that's really exciting to have someone who's got that sort of skill set. It sounds like he's had a pretty good run this year because he was in the mix for a spot. And I think he got on the park against the Blues a little bit, not very much, but so that's exciting. That's he's obviously done one season. This is his second preseason, so hopefully he just tracks well and might become one of these solid players for us in the future.
Yeah, I've kind of got a bit of a feeling of it, like a Jakey Lloyd kind of feel about him. Like he's a very skillful player, maybe a bit slight, but gets around really well, very clever. So I mean, does he have a walk-on spot? No. Will he make it onto the field at some point this season? You'd never know. Let's see how he goes in the VFL. But either way, I think I'm personally quite excited about having him on the team, even if it is in depth in a couple of years from now. So not much more to say about Lachlan Rankin. Number 40, Cameron Owen, another ruckman. What do you think about Mr. Cameron Owen?
Oh, just a development player. Obviously from Tassie there. Took him in the rookie draft last year. So, again, he's another player who might actually benefit from this complete lack of scarcity of ruck or AFL level rucks that we have. So you wouldn't think... I mean, he was listed to... in the team, at least against the Blues, but don't think he saw much game time between Laddams and Stretch. But I just think it's just another development piece. He's got another, I mean, as you've already said, rucks take years to develop, and he's still very young, but he's a good height, and he's I think he played a bit of key forward as well for the Devils there in that under 18 tournament they do. So look, nice selection, but I can't really see too much, impact from him this year, but that's okay.
A fair amount of development ahead of him, I think, but nonetheless, kind of good to see some depth in the team finally.
Yeah.
All right, now we've got another big one to talk about. Number 39, Paddy McCartan. Paddy McCartan coming off, of course, his first season back into the game, playing with his brother into that back line. Wow, what do we say about Paddy, mate? Like,
Oh, what a steal! We got an
oh,
absolute perler there, didn't we? But
we did.
just a question without notice to you, mate.
Mm.
When Buddy rests, and we'll get to Buddy, but when Buddy rests, do we potentially throw Paddy McCartan ex number one pick as a full forward, or do we just we roll him out, we keep him in the back line where he seems like he's picked up AFL footy again? We don't want to push things too hard, and obviously, I guess you can get injured in the back line as much as you can the forward line, but I don't know. I guess you just don't want to tempt fate. But yeah, do you potentially put Paddy McCartan forward with Logan in the weeks when Buddy and or Sam Reid are having a rest?
I think so. I think Sam Reid, we just know that his body's not going to hold up an entire season. I think last year was an example. I'm not talking about Sammy too much, but last year was an example of when he's on the field for a bit of time, he can make a big impact. And Logan McDonald, of course, we're all really excited about what he can do. I think he's got an enormous future ahead of him. Paddy McCartan, I think, came in the back line with the idea that being behind the forward, being, I guess, the one behind the contest, you're less likely to get knocked about. I think from what we saw from the season, he got knocked about a couple of times anyway, had a couple of scares there. One in particular where I think the entire Swans fandom was practically in tears as he was in tears down in that locker room. Now, I can't remember after which game it was, but yes, I do see him probably going up forward a bit more. He went up forward during the grand final, of course, not that that's really saying a whole lot. We needed all the help we can get wherever it was.
Yeah.
But he went up forward for about 5 minutes and kicked himself a little goal there. So there's no doubt that he's got the skill sets. He's got great hands. He gets around, a very smart footballer. His skills are, there's no doubt about those whatsoever. But I guess whether it's all part of our bigger plan to see less Buddy in the forward line, I think Paddy could be a big part of that. I really do.
Hmm.
Do you see him walk on start in the back line or forward line, or do you think they're going to mess around?
No, I think they'll start him up back, and I think that's where he played pretty much all of his time in the preseason games. So I think they won't mess around there and just start him there, and then maybe through necessity or through opportunity, they might potentially swing him forward or Francis. So it's really is just going to depend, but. I think he's obviously a starter for us. And, I'm looking forward to another big year from Paddy.
Yep, no doubt. A lot of excited fans out there to see how this one goes. Okay, now we get up to one half of the Warner combo. Corey Warner, a midfielder, hasn't yet managed to play an AFL game. Corey Warner, mate, what is your first impressions of Corey? How do you think he's going to go for this year?
So same as Rankin, taken in that same year. Obviously picked 40, the same number as his brother, who's had an absolute breakout year last year. I think he'll have benefited from another preseason. I think that he had a pretty good game against the Lions, I believe it was. He kicked a couple of goals on the wing. So look, he's showing some signs. He's got a bit of chat in him, but he brings his own style to it. He's more of that gut running wing player who can go forward and impact. So, it's going to be interesting to see. I think he's definitely probably one of these players that might have a shot throughout the year, depending on injury. But we'll have to wait and see, I think.
Yeah, a whole inch smaller than his brother, who's kind of a little bit shortish, I guess, for the modern game. But nonetheless, we'll see where he ends up. He might see some time on the ground. All right, next coming up is number 36, Joel Amati Party. Mate, he's a particularly interesting one where he's had himself a position, kind of didn't quite hold on to it, battled with McLean to kind of get more time onto the ground, had his opportunities with Hickey kind of being out, and just never really took it, mate. How do you see his next year going?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I was hopeful that there'd be a spot for McLean and Amati in a burgeoning Swans forward line, in a life beyond Buddy and Reid. But yeah, as many in the bevy have already mentioned, that they're not exactly lighting the fire on. The competition on fire. They're doing a few good things, but then consistency is sort of a bit of an issue. I think Joel might have had an injury or two this preseason, so it's a bit interrupted. But yeah, I mean, they obviously both can pinch hit in the ruck, and that's the silver lining to having a complete scarcity of genuine AFL level rucks, is that you've got these guys who can and have played AFL primarily as a key forward, but can pinch hit in the ruck. So I think that's probably formed part of the Swans brain trust thinking, that they've got these two guys who can run with the best of them. But look, if both of these guys can solidify a spot in whatever role that is they find themselves in, then it's exciting. They're great players. That at their best, they're absolute contributors. And we know that McLean can take a mark and he can kick, as can Joel. And I'm more excited about Party in the ruck, to be honest. I still remember when he went up against Ryder and Nick Nat and held his own. And these are some of the best rucks that have ever played. And but unfortunately, the ruck can't just rely on the hit out, right? The tap down. So you've got to be able to run both ways. You've got to be able to defensively mark and roll forward. And so I think it might be the thing that's held him back a smidge, but because we know McLean is an absolute running machine. People might not know this. We made the point various times over the past, but he is doing huge numbers when he's playing. So the coaches are seeing that. This guy's running almost as much as a midfielder per game. So that's probably why McLean has the edge over Amati in that sense.
Amati, there's no doubt the skill set. I love his physicality. He tackles he finishes tackles. If you get me, he really goes hard at them. He gets them to the ground. He polishes it off. What I'm not seeing, and what you're saying as well, is just not seeing enough fitness around the ground. I'm just not seeing him get up, get around the ground, go up forward, get himself a lead. Find himself some space where he can make a contest against some undersized opponents, someone like what a Reedy does sometimes, and be able to get away. So I think Joel's game would really help with, and I hope that on the preseason he's just worked on that running, gut running. So let's find out where he is in the new season. Do you see him filling up a spot this year, or getting limited game time?
Look, I think he can play. I think he can play, but it really depends on, because he's only still young, right? He's 23.
He's 22, right? 23.
23. Yeah. So I think it depends on his health, his body at the moment, and obviously mental. Like, there's a bit of confidence there, I think. But I think he can play for us. I think he can play a role for us if required. But I don't think he's knocking the door down at the the moment.
Yeah, and mostly because down there.
Mostly because
of Party.
I mean that's it. He's a character. Yeah. He's got a fan base, and it's exciting for the Swans. And I think when in some of those games he was up and about, he played great. And you're thinking, God, if he can keep this going, he'll lock down a position. And probably just structure and maybe not doing exactly what the coaches wanted, and it's probably to that slight lack of running. I mean, he's still running, but it's just maybe not what the exact kind they wanted. So
I think it's not AFL level running. I think it's what we're seeing.
So maybe his preseason injuries, because he was trying to get across that, but we don't really know. We don't have too much info on that, but I think he can play a role if he's required, and I'm hopeful because I've loved his best. I think his best can certainly contribute.
All right, number 35, Caleb Mitchell. Not a whole lot to say about Caleb. I haven't seen him around too much, and quite a young kid. What do you think, mate? He's a midfielder.
Yeah,
probably got a fair bit of development ahead of him.
Yeah, wingman. I think he's another lefty. He's last year's crop. He was taken pick 40 again, so I think he's a development piece. I think he's probably. I think I've read a few things where he's impressed the coaches with his work ethic, and obviously we're one of a handful of clubs in the AFL that will give first year players a debut if they've earned it, and I don't know, like, there hasn't been that messaging from out of Swans HQ, but I've certainly I think I've been able to glean that he's had a decent run of it so far.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think he's not in game day 23 at this stage, but I think he'll have a good first year VFL season.
And at 18 years old, I mean, he's got plenty of development ahead of him. Speaking of players that has managed to get themselves a crack onto the AFL pitch, number 34, Matt Roberts. I think at the game that he played last season, the single game, it definitely seemed like he, for all intents and purposes, he definitely wanted to have a good crack at it, but the game speed just was a bit beyond him, mate. Is that what you saw as well?
Yeah, it was against the Tigers, and he was sort of a little bit lost at sea, but that's okay. You got to have your first game at some point, and I like his preseason games already this year. He's got time on the ball. His decision making is looking fantastic. He's a lefty. He's sort of an old head in a young body. But I think he's going to play a role this year.
Which is pretty amazing to say, considering he's only 19 years old as well. So,
and our second pick of that year, remember, we got Angus Sheldrick, who was our first pick that year. So, really exciting to have both these guys coming through. And I think probably Matty Roberts has got the edge at the moment, by all accounts.
Yeah, I think so too.
Slightly different roles. I think I think Matty's more defender mid, and I think they got Gussie as more of a mid forward. So big chance for both of them.
For that matter.
Yeah.
All right. Yep. I think Matty Roberts probably gets a shot again this season, and the prediction from Steve-O from the Bevy is that it might be earlier rather than later in the season. Number 33, Mark Sheether. Mate, what do you say about him? His name's been around a few times from what I remember.
I'm scratching my head. I can't remember if he's had a preseason injury or not, but he's an academy boy. He's two years, I think, in the Swans, in the seniors. But yeah, he I think he's a development piece. I think he's been used as a mid and a mid forward predominantly. I know that he can probably play on the wing as well. I think he's quite fit, sort of a little bit like that Isaac Heaney role that can sort of roll wherever he's needed. But yeah, I think this year I hope he has a good year in the VFL and he's primed to come out next year. I don't see him playing a part, too big a part this year unless he blows everyone away in the VFL and or injury necessitates it.
Yep, I see a big season for him in the VFL. I think just keeping it solid there, I personally think he's going to do pretty well there and maybe knock on doors a little bit, but for the most part, his role this year is just to kind of solidify himself in that VFL team and get some of the coaches noticing. Probably alongside the next, number 32, Jaden Magor. Mate, I haven't heard too much about Jaden, I'll be honest with you. What about yourself?
Look, I think he hasn't figured too deeply in this preseason this year, but he's one of these another medium forwards that can take a mark and kick a goal. He's got a bit of X factor, but I love his hair, at least for the photo that they've got up on the But look. Yeah, same as Sheether. I think that he's one of these young developing core that will just have to sort of bide his time and get better and actually develop, and that's going to be through the VFL. So probably not much more to say on Magor at this point.
Yeah, beauty. All right, we come up to number 31, Tall Jesus, Tom Hickey. What can we say about Tom Hickey other than he's not aging? He seems to be resurrecting himself a few times throughout the season. Obviously we probably see him in the startup team as long as he's healthy enough. Do we see him enough this season, or do we suspect that injuries might get a hold of him?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question. I think that he is our number one ruck at this point, just based on Ladham's performances last year. But obviously with his injuries and the fact he's held together by tape, as one I think Steve-O said, it's no wonder that he's not ready to go. Obviously remember he had that knee, the PCL. He was out in round six and back in round whatever it was, 7 or something.
7.5 or whatever.
Surprised everyone. But
it just came back, just extra strapping as he gets walked back on again.
You just keep strapping. But look, I think the club has said that he won't be available for at least round one, maybe even more. So it could be that he misses the first month of training just to have an extra month of recovery. I'm not quite sure what the actual injury is with him. I'm sure other Swans fans know, but it's probably going to be a mix of any of those limbs that he's strapping up. But
any one of them, yeah,
any one of them.
But, yeah.
But like I think when he's fit, he's our key ruck. Like I've been on record saying that I was absolutely surprised with the footy that he produced, because it was a real head scratcher for me when we got him at the time. But he's certainly proven me wrong, and he's one of my favourite players at the moment. So, for the footy he plays for us when he's fit, where I think we're a better team. So
he definitely made a big difference when we had the younger crew in the middle, in the mids. I mean, Parker's not obviously young, but when we had a few of those younger guys kind of in the wingers, it just seemed that Tom was this elder statesman and just matured the team a lot faster than I thought with Rowbottom and Warner out of that midfielder. I think his biggest skill set is not only what he's been doing with the ball, but also his leadership, his cool head. He's a very, very nice, calm guy. I think he's just a great statesman to have in the clubhouse, no matter if he's on the ground or if he's out of it. So I look forward to seeing maybe some more of Tor Jesus down the path, mate. I hope to see more. Number 30, Tom McCartan. Now, what Tom McCartan has done in that back line and formed himself into an elite defender. I don't care who you are, he's an elite defender. Mate, he's a walk-in star, no doubt. That's the way I look at it. Do you feel any different?
Oh, look, I think he's our key back this year, and I think I'm hoping, all going well, that he really pushes All Australian this year, because, I think he's our pillar. He's our Reg Grundy at the moment. Yep. So, he's 2018. We picked him up, so he's 23. So he is primed, I think. To say he's looking forward to a breakout. He's already had it. Like, the competition they've been on notice that they know what we've got down there, and we've got two of them, right? Mm-hmm. So, I think that he is the key defensive player this year for us.
Yep, and what he made the under 22s last season, I think.
Again, I think he's done it
again for the second time.
Yeah, at least two times. But
and of course, starting off as a forward and then rolling himself around the back, and then I think it took him like 3 weeks before we're all like, oh my God, look at this guy. So pretty excited about Tom McCartan. I'm with you, mate. I think it would not surprise me if he's at least knocking on the door for All Australian this year. That's the kind of season I'm predicting for him to have.
Fingers crossed, mate.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Number 29, we spoke about him a little moment ago, Angus Sheldrick. So Angus came on in the first game of last season against GWS. First game that most people could go to. He looked really good. He looked very natural. He looked very aggressive. He looked to get his hands on the ball. Everyone was immediately commenting that this is someone who is very hungry and brings a lot of energy around the ball, and dare I say it, a little bit Papley-esque. So, mate, what do you think of Angus? Do we see much more of him this season?
Yeah, look, as you said, like he had a great first game there, and I'm not quite sure what happened. I think he had some sort of injury issue last year, but and I think there might have been some carryover this year. But I mean, he has played a part in some of the preseason games. But as we said, I think Matty Roberts has probably got the he's just ahead of him in the pecking order at the moment, but albeit in different roles. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what Gussie can bring this year. And, there's certainly a lot of competition in the small forward position, department as well. So, with the likes of Papley and Goulden, obviously, but I mean, we're going to get to him. But, they brought on Constanti. You've got Wicks in the wings. You've got Clark, who's sort of a bit of a hybrid. But and I'm probably forgetting a few people. But he I think is that player that can slot into that, because he's actually an inside bull at under 180 centimeters, but he's an extractor. Like he'll get the ball and feed out. So and he's got a bit of a nice turn of pace. So he can, in the juniors there was a lot of footage of him tearing out of contests as well. But we've certainly got a lot of other players who can do that. So if he can get games and kick a few goals to keep that forward role, then he'll get midfield minutes, and that's just exposure at the top level. And I think that's exciting.
He's not the biggest unit, 178 centimeters and 86 kilos. So
solidly built, I think he's good.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's the same size as me, and I can tell you this much: I am not at AFL fitness, so that he is an absolute solid little unit. And from what you're mentioning there, I think Parker physique has always been mentioned alongside with him.
I think you're right. I think the more you think about it, like there's a little difference in the height there, but it's marginal. But that really, if you think about, we've been talking about Gould being Rampy's heir apparent, then I think you'd probably be saying that Sheldrick is going to take over Parker one day.
Got a bit of that Parker energy,
Parker energy, Parker hardness on the ball, Parker extraction. But obviously Park signed that 4-year deal last year, the year before. So
last year.
So he's around obviously for a few more years. So he's going to have to find his way into the team somehow, because he's a player in demand. The Eagles and the Dockers will be all over him. So
I think we're both suggesting that we're pretty excited about seeing him. We may see him play a few games this season if all comes together. Basically, if he keeps himself healthy. Yeah. All right, number 28, William Edwards, key defender, another young kid coming up the ranks, 19 years old. Mate, what to say about him? I know that he's come from the academy, and so we are excited to have him around, but I haven't heard too much about him.
Well, he was at least in the Blues game, he was he actually went in the ruck a little bit, so he was thrown in the deep end there. But I think Look, I think he'll just keep developing this year. If he really pushes the back line again, like we're saying, like there's a lot of people, a lot of competition. So I think he'll probably just same as Sheether, academy boy, Wicks originally as well. They'll just have a solid year of development in the VFL. Obviously not Wicks, but the other two lads.
Yeah. All right, I guess number 27. Justin McAndrew, my personal favourite, mate.
Yeah, Juzzy.
I love the Juzzy. I love the energy. I love a lot about what he does. Started off the season on absolute fire, continued that, all until it seems that he signed a contract and then seemed to have slowed up a bit. But the word is that kind of came with a little bit of injury. So, but nonetheless, kind of went out there. I get really excited about Justin because Juzzy's like a two-way player. He's already playing a defensive role, offensive. You saw what he did against let's look. 2 weeks back-to-back last season showed two different styles of football that he had to play and play against some of the best. He was up there against the Pies, of course, in the prelim. Had his head swiveled on, got himself a goal for his effort, played really hard, had a Dacos next to him. At the same time, the week before that, playing against the Ds, he was up against, arguably some of the best wingers going around, and he really held his own, albeit the numbers didn't look great, but on the ground, he looked fantastic, man. So I personally see him starting spot there on the wing. What's your look on him?
Yeah, it's somewhere between wing and halfback, and I don't know yet either. Like he's been playing wing in the preseason, but I think that it's going to be a mixture of him, Ollie, Jake Lloyd, Braden Campbell coming up, and obviously Blakey as well, who's a tall who can run off the halfback. But a mixture of these guys that are sort of those medium defenders to lockdown defenders. But again, it's going to depend on when Fox comes back, because I think that he's sort of really going to put a lot of pressure on these guys. So there is a bit of pressure on Juzzy, I think, heading into the season 23. Yeah. Although I liked what I saw in the preseason, his kicking efficiency was pretty good. He's got great vision. I think we've always his IQ, his footy smarts is really, really high, and he when he's on fire, he can really set the team alight. And, he was making some really nice passes, some really nice decisions. So, I'm like you, mate. I'm a massive fan of Juzzy, and I think that if he can get back to that level that he showed in that first quarter of the start of last year, then he'll be a lock for sure. I mean, he is a lock currently, but he's one of these players who I think may come under pressure depending on other players' form and then returning players' fitness.
Yep, he's got a good head on him. He runs a lot. He's got a good skill set, and he's quite intense at the ball. So I think he's got all of the pieces of the puzzle. Yep. Speaking of all the pieces of the puzzle, number 26, El Capitan, Luke the Fridge Parker. What can we say about the most consistent player on the ground since, I don't know, since his other bull magnet, big boy, left off last year? So, mate, he's at 30 years old. Luke Parker, what do we say about him? How do we feel his season's going to be going?
It's funny. I was just like, we just made the comment that he obviously had that big contract extension, and then obviously Dawson flew the coop, and he's now captain at Adelaide, so good on him. But obviously not competing for the same position when they're at the Swans, but I think some of that contract money was tied up together. So, but no, I actually think there's never been a more important year for Luke Parker. I know that sounds like a bit of a cop-out, but given that Hickey is going to be out for the first month, and really we're looking to rely on more and more of our youngsters in the middle, then it is so important to have an old head who's been there and done that and can get the job done. Obviously we've got Millsy, who's going to be another AA year we're predicting, but he is that sort of second generation of leaders, although he is captain. But other than him, it's really Parker. And there were a lot of times last year when we were talking and some of the other bevy, Jules, Steve-O and Brett, saying that once again it was left to Parker and Mills to dig us out or to even give us the game. Even give us some competition. So I think it's even more so when you lose another experienced player like Hickey for the probably the most important part of the season apart from finals. So I'm really, really important, and I hope he can keep doing the amazing things we know he can do.
Yep. Came second in the A-Bob last season for us, and the A-Bob for everyone at home is the equivalent of the Bob Skilton medal, but done by the podcast that you're listening to right now. He really was on absolute form last year. He got, obviously, Millsy stood up like no one's business and shut him up a little bit in that midfield and just practically all around the ground. But Parker was the most consistent player we could ever have asked for. His leadership down the middle. So he's a walk-on start. There's no doubt talking about that. And as you suggest, mate, probably as long as he stays healthy, it'd be really good to see him out there every single week. He's got the development of Warner, Chad Warner, to be super clear, and Roy Bottom as well, to be next to him. Both two gentlemen who had an absolute stellar year last year in their own perspective styles of football, and they need a Parker down the middle to kind of keep them down the straight and narrow. So
and all the more important that given that Joey Kennedy is no longer on the field, his presence will remain. He'll still be around the club and helping out, no doubt. But just losing that type of player and that type of clubman, massive opportunity for the youngsters coming through. But that puts even more emphasis on the role that Parks will play this year. But
and he's got himself a big ruckman there in Laddams to probably yell out a whole lot more this season, we hope. So let's see where Parker's game out. We're looking for a big one from El Capitan. Goes up there, kicks a couple as well. It's always good to see.
Nice one.
Number 25, Cooper Vickery. Mate, Cooper Vickery has had a little bit of excitement around the traps, but do we see him cracking the team for this year?
Yeah, no, I'm not sure if he'll make the starting 23 with any regularity, but I think they've liked what they've seen so far. Obviously, we made a play on him. He was a Hawthorn next generation player, lefty lockdown defender. I think he's our future Nick Smith, this guy, and I think that he's a hard trainer by all accounts, and they're the types of players that the Swans go after. Beatson really just finds the work ethic, and then then the culture sort of tends to do the rest. And I think he's got a massive future. But he'll probably just need to have a strong year in the VFL if he's going to debut or this year, but more likely next year. But yeah, one to be really excited about, I think.
Yeah, one to be pushing guys like Juzzy as well for his position. Pick 27 at the last year's draft. Expecting him to play out of defence or out wing. 18 years old, still very young, 181 centimetres and 73 kilos. So slight, but as you mentioned, work ethic has always been mentioned when it comes to old Cooper. All right, number 24, the other captain, Dane Rampy, key defender. Oh, the Ramps, mate. Does the Ramps have another season in him?
So I think he should hold out this year. Although we were saying he was looking a little bit slow in parts last year, but then came good, I think. So, we'll know pretty quickly. I think the first 6 weeks of the comp, we'll have a good read of where he's at. 32, obviously, but as we've noted tonight and previously, he had a delayed start to his career, so his body has probably got those extra years in him. Critical to our defence communication and critical to that never say die, fight for every ball sort of character that we have across the club. But look, he is one that's certainly under pressure. We've brought in Francis. We've got both of the McCartans. Blakey's a tall, short, but we've got the big question mark, and we'll get to him in the teens, Will Gould. Yep. So I think this year is the year that we're gonna find out one way or another. So we'll have to wait and see.
I mean, what an absolute crowd favourite, stalwart of the club. Super happy and gifted to have him. To see him on the pitch and hold down a spot, I think would be super special. Speaking of which, number 23 goes without saying, Mr. Lance Franklin. Last year, in his ninth season, it was ninth season, wasn't it?
For the Swans, but I think Swans, 19th. Yeah, all up.
119th season for AFL. Mr. Lance Franklin, buddy, had an absolute great year again, and of course topped off with a visit to the grand final and kicking 1,000 goals for his career and turning the SCG on its absolute head while he was at it. So, Buddy Franklin, I've personally have said that a bit of a KPI for the Swans this year is to see him less on the pitch, to maybe getting on there when he needs to be on there, the right matchups and whatnot, but to be dependent on him to kick his 3 or 4 every single week is something that the Swans probably need to do without, although I don't see that entirely happening. I think we're going to be leaning on him a little bit more. I hope his body holds up, mate. What about you? What's your feeling?
Yeah, look, I think they've been pretty open. I mean, they were pretty open with it last year, but it's even more this year. They're almost saying don't expect to see him play every game. So yep. I don't know if that means he's playing every other game or every other game, or that they're just going to wait and see how he pulls up after every single game he plays. So, I mean, he might surprise us. And if Buddy says, no, I'm fine, then you're not going to not pick him.
Right.
He's obviously, he's like any full forward. He's got players that play better on him than others. Obviously, Stephen May gave him a bit of a lesson in that game last year, but Stephen May had probably one of his career best games, and he probably would have wrapped up anyone that game. So, Jacob Wiedering is another.
But he also managed to kind of do his own little thing, take May off the ball, and we won with some different tactics there, which is kind of what an old head can do for you.
But he's the greatest forward of the modern era, but he's a team first player. Yeah. So whatever horse requires, he'll do it, and that's what I love about Buddy. He's just so selfless, really. Yeah. You see him give off how many over his career? How many goals has he given off? He's probably that'd be an interesting stat to look at, because he could probably have another couple of hundred goals potentially. But look, I'm excited that he is around for another year. Probably more for a development from a development standpoint.
Yeah, for Logan.
But if he can kick another 50 goals, then that's incredible. But if he can help Logan kick 30 and Buddy himself kick somewhere in the same region, then I think that's going to be more important for the club going forward.
Yep. No, I agree with everything you said there.
Yeah.
Okay, mate, let's move ahead. Number 22, the Lizard, Nick Blakey. They're about Blakey.
Oh, yeah.
Now, mate, he has just continually impressed. He had that little period there, was a bit quiet, went down to VFL, put himself in the back line, came back absolutely screaming, whole new look. When he gets going off that back line, there are a few things more exciting on the pitch.
Yeah.
Mate, Blakey, how do you see his season going? I am looking at him for AA, knocking on the door for AA as well.
Well, mate, this could be the year that the monitor lizard, or the what are we going to say,
the Komodo dragon.
Komodo dragon.
That's right.
Is unleashed, but he obviously he's had a little bit of an interrupted preseason. He's had a couple of bouts of a bout of glandular fever, but I don't expect that to hold him back for too long. But I think that he's one of these players, a bit like Tommy McCartan, who started in the forward line and then was sort of trialled in the middle as sort of a Patrick Cripps, albeit slender type player, and then obviously found his position in the back line, as you've already touched on. So, I mean, what a wonderful player to have in the team.
That's right.
He's a number 10 pick. He's an academy boy. I see him probably starting in defence, and then if they need to roll forward, he might actually be one of these players that goes forward when Buddy
makes his way back up forward again. Yeah. I agree with that. I think he might be he might start swinging a little bit forward again. We've got a lot of, like you mentioned, a lot of depth, especially in that halfback role. Some of the younger kids could probably get up there and play. I agree with that. You might see Blakey kind of taking a bit of that Sam Reid time, although they play very different styles. But yeah, I agree with that. Let's hope that Blakey, gets those big lizards out, kills it for this year.
Komodo dragon, here we come.
Big Komodo dragon. All right, mate. Look, number 21. Errol Goulden.
Errol.
Errol had albeit it's a preseason game, 45 touches, 3 goals, 9 clearances, over 800 metres gain in the preseason game against Carlton. It is a preseason game, but it just goes to show, I think Errol is coming into this season with absolute intent. And from all accounts, to quote Zane Red and White, he's a junkyard bull at the contest. And I think he's just absolutely licking his lips to get some infield minutes, mate. What about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think he certainly put the competition on notice. Certainly those who play fantasy, he got like 177 or 180 or something, which is just huge. It's just a huge. I think Jared McVeigh even said it was just like one of the best all-time games, even though it was a preseason game. It was like best all-time individual sort of thing. It was pretty amazing comment from an incredible player himself, and dual premier. So look, he's a little bit like Heaney, isn't he? He's so gifted. He's a little bit of Mr. Fix-It, but I think that if the writing's on the wall, he's going to have more minutes this year in the midfield, and hopefully he can roll forward and kick goals like he did in both preseason games. He's obviously a man of incredible self-motivation, and, bit like Rampy and some of these other players, Buddy, they are very, very much a team-first player. But you can see he's just in his third year. It's going to be one of these traditional third-year breakout years. You can see the focus in him, and you can see that he's already setting standards at such a young age, and that's just going to have a positive effect on this young core. And I'm very, very excited, and I think we all are. And look, I think the competition is afraid of we've got another gun young player who's just going to be another string to our bow. And
I saw someone on Twitter mention that we should have Kohler taken away from us with all these good young players. Like, all right, mate. Kohler's not been around, and the young players don't matter. What are you talking about? Anyway, but he's one of those. He's one of those players.
Have another can of Coke, mate.
He's one of those players that I think the Swans know him. I think the AFL pundits know how good he is. The rest of the AFL, the casual observer for other teams, is going to start paying attention, and his name's going to be out there a bit more. He's got captain material written all over him. He's got that kind of energy and leadership. Like, if you ever watch it play, after a game, after a goal that we've scored, like we've done something good, he's straight up to somebody yelling at them for something they should have done instead. You know what I mean? He's that kind of player. He is intense. He wants the game to go perfect. So he's got captain material written in him for like a good 10 years. And like you mentioned, this year, I think every year's been his breakout year so far.
First year, 15 really games good. Or so in the first year.
Yeah, second season, like last year, he looked really
did he kick
good.
Like 3 goals in his first game or something?
I can't remember that.
It was bonkers. Yeah. We're just like, who the hell is this kid?
But Richmond or Cats? Anyway,
I think it was Lions.
Okay. But it just goes to show that, season 3, we're saying breakout season. He's probably going to keep rising a little bit longer, we hope. So, he's a cream of the crop. It rises. There's no doubt about that. Every single Swans fan is particularly interested to see how it goes. And remember, he's 20 years old, mate. He's 20 years old.
I know. So
about him so
at the same time, we shouldn't put too much pressure on him because of that. But
that's
it's
true.
Just he's been in the system so long. He's like he entered his first season as like basically a consummate professional. Just the academy does such a good job that the Sydney Swans put $1 million in each year because it's required in our market here. But he's one of these absolute success stories, or a number of. We've got a number in the current squad as well. But shouldn't put too much pressure on him. But like we've said, like he's the kind of guy that thrives on off pressure. He's got very high standards for himself, and he really wants that for the team because he wants. You can see he wants the ultimate glory. But if Chad Warner had that breakout year last year, and we've got Goulden this year, then what an amazing,
I remember when we spoke to Ty Kennelly, he was talking about Goulden. He said something along the lines of, and effectively translated to something along the lines of, he is an absolute gun player, and he will be for a long time. Was what Ty was suggesting. So, if anyone's going to know, it's definitely going to be Ty.
Definitely, I think he played a part in the academy program when him and Campbell were coming through. So he is very well placed to make comment, and just very excited and fingers crossed he has a big year.
Yep. All right, number 20. What can we say about Sam Reid? Sam Reid coming on last season, and halfway, I think it was a game against the D's, because I remember being in Singapore and we did the potty from there, where he had an absolute stellar game, played ruck, forward, did everything he could to will the team together. Just became, once again, an enormous staple of the team, and seemingly was playing the best football of his entire career, mate. What do you think about Sammy?
Was that the game he had like 10 tackles or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was incredible.
It's a crazy amount of hit-outs and everything. And
Look, I think he's sort of in that he had a few an interrupted preseason again, unfortunately, but he played minutes at least against the Blues I saw and looked good. The thing is, Sammy, when he's fit, is a fantastic player. He's an absolute beautiful marker of the ball. He can clearly kick goals, although you'd probably want him to be kicking accurately. I think he's and maybe they're hoping that they can get Sammy one week and Buddy the next, and then just interchange these guys. But he's pretty much like Buddy. If he goes to Horsey, I'm fit, and if you'd kindly select me. So I think they'd have that level of communication, and so if their bodies are fit and they are performing, then there's no reason you wouldn't pick both of them. But just as long as Logan McDonald is in the mix, it's really, really important that Logan gets
as
games
much
this
game
year.
time. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I agree with all of that, mate. I think we need to see make sure we see Sammy on the pitch fit, but also making sure that his spot is necessary. We don't want to be depending on Sammy Reid to stay healthy throughout the season. We all know how that's going to go.
And like we've already said, we've got Aaron Francis who can swing. We've got Blakey who can potentially swing. So if he doesn't make the team through injury or form, then we've got these guys who we believe can fill that role. So it's a good depth play.
Yeah, McLean and Amadi amongst
of course, those guys as well. Sorry, yep.
All right. We've spoken about him a fair bit, so I don't think we need to touch on him too much. But number 19, Peter Laddams. The Ladders Mate, he really disappointed a lot of Swans fans last year with his brain fades.
Yeah.
Missing out on a couple of pivotal games when we really needed him and when he had an opportunity to come into the ground and really show the amount of, excitement that the Swans fans really had for him.
Yeah.
This is the year for him to prove himself, the way I look at it. I think he's got himself a position and he needs to bloody well stick to it. What do you think?
Oh, look, 2022 was the year of the bad lad. And look, 2023,
like that,
he's primed. I think he's...
The good lad.
The good lad. It's the year of the good lad. He's had. It looks like he's had a good preseason. He's looking fitter. He's looking more gelled with the midfield unit. He played really, really well. He was a standout player against the Blues. But he did have a few injuries, like knocks and face. Like he's a little bit of a Patrick Dangerfield there, where something happens and he goes down. You go, oh God, what's happening? So you hope he can stay clear of injuries. But because I think when he is on and when he's fit, especially with these young core midfield coming through, it is exciting. Like he is a great player. He's a great marker. He's a really great kicker. His handballing is pretty good.
Can play up forward. We were talking about it earlier.
That's right. We were thinking, maybe. That's the segue. All this banter about the Swans being interested in Tom de Koning from Carlton, saying we're interested in giving him 8 years. Why would you give 8 years to a developing ruck?
That's not. I don't
look what's happened with Collingwood and Melbourne and Grundy. They gave him 7 years. They've shoveled him off. Grundy was a league leading player at the time. Why on earth would you give 8 years to an unknown?
I don't know.
It's bonkers. Melbourne. It must have been a quiet news day.
It must have been. Just throw the Swans under it, whatever.
That's it. They love doing that preseason. They're trying to rock the boat.
Yeah. Look, Ludham's, this is the year for him. 25 years old, I think this is a good year for maturity, I think, as well.
Yep.
I think he's the kind of player that I think really gels with some of the others. I think the word is that he's really kind of put his head down and acknowledged some of the things that has happened. So I think Swans fans just need to get behind him again this year, and let's see where Ladders gets out. The good lad year. The
good lad. Yeah, I think he'll be great this year.
Yeah,
especially he'll need to be. With Hickey missing probably the first few weeks, we really need him to step up. So
that's right. All right, number 18. Again, we've spoken about him a fair bit so far, considering such a young character and not played a single game of AFL. Jacob Constanti, number 18, mate. He has been mentioned as Papley-esque, and I think that's why Swans fans get so damn excited about hearing it. What is your take on him?
Oh, just same region, same type of footy, hard worker. I think he has impressed this preseason, although I think he's picked up some shin soreness. So he might have genuinely been in the running for a round one debut by the sounds of it, but not now with some of the soreness that's come through. So yeah, just very exciting to have another player that's showing a lot of promise. But yeah, one to watch. I think he might actually. He may debut this year, depending on how we go. But yeah, I mean, if he's got half the X factor that Papley has, then yeah, it'd be awesome to have them both on the field at the same time, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And I think some of that positioning that players like Wicks and Bell were kind of taken up before. He throws his hat in the mix from all accounts. He's big on tackles. I think in the NAB league, he had the second highest tackles, and he was known for tackle pressure inside 50. So he definitely has what we deem as important for our forward line. And I think that's part of the reason why his name is mentioned a fair bit as well. Not only are we excited about him as the player, it also fits our mould. So let's see where Constanti gets some football time. I suspect he gets a couple of games in this season at the very least. All right, number 17. Probably the most contentious one, surprisingly, of all of them we're going to talk about. Will Gould, key defender, big lad, a good size, good head, does well in the VFL, has had Swans fans everywhere perplexed as to how he hasn't gotten game time. Noddy, do you want to give 2 cents into what you think has held Will Gould back?
Oh, I don't know. It just must be that he's not... It's clearly two things, because he's been largely free of injury. It's that he's not quite doing what the club wants, or he's kept out of the position that they're grooming him for. And I think it's probably more the latter than the former. Because if of his, like a player of his quality, and all the AFL pundits were saying he's ready to go round one, he's got the body of a man, he's good to go, and he's missed he came in 2019, so he's missed 3 seasons basically. Like he hasn't debuted for 3 seasons. And look, we were at the end of last year, we were frankly concerned that he was going to be traded, or that he might say, "Look, I want to get out of here."
On the account that he couldn't get a spot on the ground. That's right.
And to his credit, he has stuck around, because I mean he's going to get a game at most clubs that he's at. And he's shown some loyalty here with us, and so I'm just hopeful that he can get some game time this year. Because if he doesn't, then it would be quite silly for him not to, because he's leaving money on the table. If I can get into the economics of it, he could be earning a lot more. And I know it's not all about the money for players, but that there is a there's a limit to how long these players play, and they want to win the grand final, but they also want to get some bank as well. So it's a fine line. But look, I just think the fact he was of such high pedigree, South Australian captain, back-to-back All-Australian in his junior year, like just came with such a excitement. We're just all so excited to see what he could do, and he still hasn't broken in yet. And we've all seen him play in the VFL, and some days, he just plays his role, which is unexciting. Other days, he can roll forward and kick 2 goals. Like he's got a thumping kick. He can dash off the halfback. But if we've got other players doing that role, then what's the role they want him to do? Is it lockdown defender? Is it just rampy? Is it float in and take a mark? I don't really know. We're not on the inside, so it's hard to know.
And it's, a defender, like more so than any other position, if you don't notice them, they're doing the right thing. Yeah. So as you're suggesting, he just gets it done. That's kind of what he needs to do. Is not being shown up by his opponent, and he's not necessarily having to do these amazing flashy things. Just shut down players. And get his hands on the ball when he needs to, and get spoils out and whatnot. So, look, last year named the Swans VFL Player of the Year. So, there's no doubt that everyone's been taking notice. I agree with you. I suggest that it's probably positioning. He doesn't have a walk-in spot onto the ground, and those backlines just need to be solid. The way that we play, the way that it works in the structure. We have our back line and we stick to them true and true. So I feel it's going to take a solid injury for him to get enough game time
foot in the door,
to then stay on the ground. I got a feeling that if Rampy gets, God forbid, knock on wood, hopefully it doesn't, but if he does a calf or something, and he's out for 2, 3, 4 weeks, I suggest that we see Will Good take that spot, and if he plays decently, he doesn't leave, and that's just what his introduction into AFL is going to be.
He's still young as well. It's just he comes with such pedigree and expectation, the weight of expectation, and the Swans they give debuts to players who have earned it, and there's a need for it. Sometimes you don't always earn it, but there's a need for it, and you're the best player for that role at that time. But it's just. Yeah, he's also sort of in that he's sort of somewhere between a medium defender and not quite tall enough for a key defender, right? So, and he is a big lad, so maybe he hasn't had that sort of closing speed that they want as that hybrid, that third tall. Right, that Rampy has just been able to do amazingly over the years.
Shut down small guys with a bit of speed, shorter, despite he's a big boy.
That's it. He's shorter than most key forwards. Sometimes he gives up 10 or 15 centimeters, depending on who he's playing against. But he was able to bridge that gap through his closing speed and read of the ball. And so maybe Will Gould doesn't have that yet. Whereas he's a fantastic kicker, he can run off the halfback, and he's got an incredible defensive spoil as well. But yeah, I'm like most Swans fans. I think we want to see him debut, and we want to see if he can cut it at the top level. But yeah, I'm hopeful he has a run this year, because otherwise I think he probably won't hang around another year.
Yeah, like you're right. I think it's something you brought up that's really, really poignant, is that his style of football seems like the more traditional defender,
Shannon Hearn.
one-on-one.
Think Shannon Hearn.
That's a perfect way to say it.
Just a backline ball who can just thump a footy and
just bother blokes.
Yeah,
whereas you've got to look at a Rampy who plays a more athletic mongrel style, which is kind of made himself a name of it.
Dane Rampy in the Velvet Robes, athletic mongrel.
Mongrels and athletes. But Will plays a very, very different game. So maybe it's just a matter of as well finding a good mixture of players around him to make sure it fits in well. That's another big part of it.
Yep.
Right. All right. We're starting to get to the sticky end. So we've got number 16, Braden Campbell. Mate, I'll let you start off with this one. What about Braden?
Oh, mate, I think I would be disappointed if he didn't play at least 15 games this year. I think he's ready to go. I think he's ready to go wherever we need him. He's an amazing... We all know he's got probably the best kick in the team now that Dawson's gone. Arguably between him and Goulden, funnily enough.
Of course,
But that long-range bomb that he kicked against the Blues was just
70 odd plus,
just incredible, right? So look, I think I'm really excited for him, and I think Horse has gone on record saying that Braden's come along and he'll be in the mix for sure. So you probably can't get higher praise than that. And so I'm hopeful and expecting him to have a run this year for sure.
Yeah, everything that I've seen him physically as well, he looks. But he toyed like a toy guy. He looks tough. He looks hard. He looks much stronger. He looks very, very fit. So I think he's been working extremely hard in the off season to make sure that whatever role was maybe explained to him last season of what he needs to be doing, he's come back for this season looking very, very good. And I don't think there's a single doubt about his skill sets. He's a very skillful player. Got a good head on him. Seems like speaks well, seems like just a good kid, but he's desperate to get some time on the ground. And so I think this season's his season to break out. I think he's going to have a really good one. Would he still be up for rookie status at this point, considering he hasn't played too many games in a season?
Yeah,
Might be close to it.
Yeah, I think he probably would, to be honest. Yeah. So there you go. We could, although he has, didn't he? Wasn't he one of the rising stars last year? But I think he's still probably eligible for it.
He is, yeah.
He's got to have played under 10 games, and you have to be. Oh, if this is what season is this? No, this is his third season. So I think you've got to still be within 2 seasons potentially.
17 seasons he's played. 17 games he's played apparently.
He's already played. Okay, he's beyond the threshold then.
Mind you, a few of them would have been emergency. Would not seen the game as well.
I would not have said 17 games.
I would have honestly said 8, 9.
Yeah, that's surprising to me.
Under 10.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Look, I think you can tell he's hungry for it. And he's obviously been working hard. We've seen him around. I think it was who was that? Was that Jules or someone saying they saw him running at Manly?
Yeah, Jules is catching him running at Manly like an absolute demon around Christmas time. This is pre-Christmas, that one period of the year where these boys are allowed to let themselves go a little bit. Apparently, Braden was absolutely crushing pavers down there at Manly, so he is very, very, very keen.
Yeah, I think I'm very excited about his year and wherever he can play. You you got to remember he's more of a mid forward, right? And we've got him playing off the as a defender halfback, right?
Yeah.
It's a little bit like that Callum Mills. He started in the back line when he joined the club. And now he's finally gone back to his traditional position of midfield and he's tearing it up. And that was probably, 3 or 4 years later. So, there is, the Swans do make you work for it and earn it. But I just think he's too dangerous a player to have off the field.
Yeah. I think all Swans fans and coaches know he's in the mix for this year for sure.
Certainly.
Mate, number 15, Sam Wicks. A little bit controversial with old Swans fans. Not sure what his role in the game is, but I kind of see his role as a little bit up for grabs. He's not really been able to solidify it, albeit some great words from Horse last year when he did say our top 6 forwards have Sam Wicks in that team. Mate, do you see him taking a lot more minutes this year?
I think it depends. He hasn't really factored into the preseason starting team and neither did Will Gould. While I remember that, I forgot to say that at the time. But so you'd think he's not there again, but what a fantastic depth player to have at this point, and that's no offense to Wicks. I think he is a genuinely good forward, half defensive, crumbing small forward player. Although he is a fantastic midfielder as well, to be honest, and you see him in the VFL and he can tear it up there. But I think that, when Clark came in and played that role and did it so well and kept his position for the last 10, 12 games of the season, including the grand final, that effectively kept Wixie out. And that was the structure they went for. They went for that tagging forward who can also kick a goal or so a game. So and Wixie is very competitive as well. As we said, he's a local Sydney boy, academy product, really, really hard worker, and very hard on himself. I'm sure you've seen vision of him when he misses. He's much harder on himself than most. I think Goulden and Heaney are similar. You can see those sort of reactions they do when they miss a kick. They're very, very disappointed in themselves. So that shows you the expectation they have on themselves and the standards they set for themselves. So I think that it's a good problem to have. I think if Wixie is fighting hard to get back in the team, that's driving everyone to be better. And so if he cracks it back in, it means he's worked his butt off. So good on him.
Yeah. We're looking at players like maybe a Matty Roberts, Sheldrick, Constanti to be pushing him for his spot. In terms of pressure up the forwards. So
he's that last forward position. But it depends if they consider him as that hybrid who can pinch hit in the middle and or off halfback. So. As I said, he hasn't really figured into starting 22 at this stage, but you never know. But I do think he'll play a role this year.
All right, so from one non-lock player to a lock-in, any team in the competition would love to have Callum Mills coming off a stellar season, career season where he made the All-Australian team alongside his buddy there, Heaney. Millsy had, in his first game as captain, was unbelievable and probably a perfect player, albeit didn't make enough to get Brownlow because he's helping out in more important places than just getting touches. But bloody hell, mate, what do we say about Millsy? He is just, another stellar year, another knocking on the door of AA for Millsy, we suspect.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was Jules or someone else saying that Millsy will get the Brownlow. I think it was either last year or this year, so he's still on track for that. He came polled ninth in that. Look, I don't have too much to say about Millsy. He's sort of in that. I made the comment that I think Parker's got a more important role this year just for the experience, but Millsy really is going to be driving the team. Like he did last year. And I say that with confidence, noting that he's had a few of those issues with his Achilles and stuff. So touch wood, everything's all good there. I see him having another incredible year, and really he is the backbone of the team. All other players will be able to play their natural game off his incredible link game, his high defensive work, his ability to push forward and kick goals when we need it, like in Josh Kennedy style. He is. I think he's our best player and our most important player.
Yep, couldn't disagree at all with any of that. By the way, came 7th in the Brownlow last year, not 9th.
7th. Oh, fact-checking. Noddy, throwing out numbers. Don't say a number, Chriso. I'll check your numbers after this. I'll tell you what, mate. Thank you for having my back there, brother.
This is what I do. When you're talking, I'm just trying to find a way to upset
you. Prove me wrong, you cheeky bastard.
That's it, mate.
You all sure? Right. I just thought it was.
Yeah.
Thought it was 9th.
No, you know what? Yeah, I think it came up in the last potty as well. That's why I can't remember saying it, because I said 10th and you corrected me to said 7th.
Oh, did I?
It's my turn to get you back. See?
Yeah,
that's why I've been holding on this for ages.
It sounds like you have.
Yeah, we're very petty here at ABOB. All right, Mr. Number 13, Ollie Florent. Oliver, mate, Ollie's a funny player, isn't he? He gets his touches, he makes his impact, and then no one notices he's on the ground sometimes. Yet, if you look at the numbers and you see what he did, if you just isolated him on the ground, you're like, wow, Ollie is doing a lot off the ball, with the ball, putting pressure on what he needs to do. He's a walk-on player, as far as I'm concerned, without a question of doubt. And one of those players that his name's on the board every single week and no one questions it. What do you think, mate?
Yeah, I agree with everything there, mate. I think he's a great player, and he seems to have found his role on the halfback, and can really ignite us. When we find ourselves in a lull. And yeah, I mean that, obviously he can play in the midfield. He started his career there, but I think he can equally play as good footy off the halfback or even on the wing. But he also can kick goals. We know he can kick goals. So just another great young player that we've got. So he's a starter, just a starter for me. And I hope he has a really big year.
Is it one of those players? He's 24 years old. He feels like he's been a rookie at the club for 10 years now. It feels like. I again, another player that I would imagine would be knocking to have his career best year. I think he's got it in him. I think he's going to have a stellar year this year. I'm looking forward to it. All right. The excitement machine, number 11, Tom Papley. Mate, Tom had found himself a new role there, playing out of the centres a bit more last year. A bit more, just randomly out of the centres. We didn't really see that coming, to be honest with you. In 1 week, he started lining up in the centres and, just started screaming out of it. And him beside Warner with that electricity and the foot speed out of the middle. Started kicking goals and really started making the rest of the competition pay attention to us. So what do we say about Papley? Do we see him doing a bit more of that, or more of his traditional small forward role?
Yeah, I guess it's going to depend on how many minutes, midfield minutes, they want to put into Goulden and potentially Campbell and Rowie, obviously as well. But Warner, that's a given. But yeah, I think it's also probably going to depend on the opposition and how we're tracking within a game. He's one of those players that can sort of turn the tide, genuine X factor, either forward 50 or clearly, as we saw last year, as you've said, in the centre square. So just fantastic option to have. Small, quick, elusive player in the middle who can, he can get us going forward. So just awesome, blessed to have him in the team, but also have that ability that he's showing now to have that sort of new role.
Yeah, and he's got himself a bit of leadership, doesn't he? Like he kind of he's got that energy that it just gets the team around him. A lot of the boys absolutely adore him. He's fantastic in front of camera. I think there was a bit of chatter to suggest that he might have made himself captain for this year, but didn't quite get there. I don't know whether that's going to be the case necessarily, but we're very lucky to have him, and he's a walk-on start every single game. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I mean, he's known as the barometer by most commentators for the Swans, but he's part of the leadership group, the 8-man leadership group. It's quite a growing number, isn't it? But
22 leaders on the ground. Why not?
22. Right. Do you know the eight leaders there, mate? Obviously,
I don't.
Captains Millsy, Rampy, and Parker.
Yeah,
and
Heaney, then Buddy, and you've got who else
Lloydie, Papley, and Hayward.
There you go.
So you've got the old heads.
Good to see Hayward up there.
Yeah, totally. I was going to say that. Yeah. So well, he's I think he's number 9, isn't he? So
we'll talk about him in a
just
second.
around the corner. Yep.
All right, between those two brothers in arms, Hayward and Papley, we have our new recruit, and more or less the only new person that we kind of pulled into the side from the outside, Aaron Francis, a defender from the Bombers. All word from the Bombers fans suggests that they were really sad to see him go, but they just weren't using him as much as they needed to or they wanted to, and they just didn't see enough of Aaron, mate. What is your idea of how Aaron's going to go this year, and will he see some minutes?
Well, he's had a bit of a crack in the preseason games, and I think that, as we've touched on, they had him down, I think primarily as a defender, but obviously listed as a key forward, so clearly he's got that swing role in mind. It's just going to depend. Like, he's a genuinely good marker of the ball. His intercept marks when he played at Essendon, I think, is what Bombers fans remember.
Oh, mate, like you go, every one of you right now, pause this, go to YouTube and just type in Aaron Francis highlights, and you see him taking just gorgeous intercept marks around the ground, backwards, forwards, sideways, over people.
He can take screamers as well. He can actually take absolute screamers. Yeah,
so he's got that kind of Paddy McCartan kind of intercept kind of energy about him. I suspect maybe if Paddy does go up forward at some point during the season to help out there, if that's the angle we go, Aaron finds himself a spot in that kind of role.
Yeah, I mean, he's got skills, right? So you don't get picked. You're not a first round pick if you don't earn it. Previous number 6. Obviously, he's gone through some mental health stuff over his journey so far, and obviously that's fine. And you hope the Bombers maybe did more, but it obviously didn't work out. And when we've picked him up, and I think that it's a fortuitous acquisition, and I think that I think he'll definitely play a role this year. I just don't know. I really don't know whether it's in defense or forward.
Yeah, I don't know. I've got a little bit of sleeper action about him. I would love to see him get some time on the ground. I don't want to put the hoodoo on him, but I would love to see. Yeah, I think Aaron's got the skill sets in a position that makes sense for him. Let's see where Aaron, and we talk about him like he's been around the traps forever. He's only 25 years old as well, so he's at prime age.
Good age profile. Coming into a premiership window, even though we were probably a year early last year. I think it was a really good pickup by the Swans.
Yep. All right, we've spoken about him just briefly, but Will Hayward, the young forward, the horse's coach's pet, from all accounts, 24 years old, mate. Again, a forward that's been on the team for what feels like forever, and he just works so hard and gets so much done for such a young guy. He had some time off on the sidelines. I think it was 1 or 2 games when he wasn't kind of pulling his weight, sitting next to Coach Horse a couple of games there, and came back on, and he hasn't left the team since all over again. So, mate, do we see Will just continuing what he does, or do we see more from him for this year?
I think so. He's been pretty consistent over the years. He's always increased. I think apart from 1 year, he's always pretty much increased his goals he's kicked, and he was third highest goal kicker last year, if I'm not wrong. So if he can kick about 30 goals again, which I'm hoping he can, then he's done what we need him to do, really. And he's being viewed as a key part of the team. He's made the leadership group, and he's exciting. He's genuinely exciting. There's been a lot of games in the past where we've been bailed out by Hayward kicking 3 goals and having a lot of forward pressure. So I think that he's clearly got the ability, and then I think that the rest is just consistency. So
he's good overhead, great kick. Smart footballer, good energy. He's basically does everything you would want to see from an AFL footballer.
Yep, mid-forward, he's a lock.
Walk-on start. Yep. All right, another potential lock for the bevy, James Rowbottom, playing more of an inside role this year, potentially undersized for doing it. But look, as the season went on, he got better and better and better. So what do we say about Rowie?
Yeah, I think that this is Rowie's chance to really fill the empty shoes of Joey Kennedy, although in that slightly different traditional role of bull. But there's probably none harder on the field than Rowie. His ability to tackle and follow up tackle is some of the best in the league. And I think it was either him or Parker that led tackles for us, but they were both in the top 10. So I think he's a really key player for us, and I'm excited about the year ahead for him, because I think he's got a massive opportunity to cement his spot in the club going forward. And I actually think Rowie will be a future leader of the club. just while we're on it, I think it'll be Millsy, Rowie, and Goulden.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I think he's got captain material written all over him. He's got a very good head. He's very humble for such a bull in the inside. And yeah, I think he kind of got a bit of bad raps for having a few bad kickouts and potentially providing the opposition with some easy intercept marks. But in that position that he's in, you don't have a lot of time to think about it. And at the prime age of 21 years old, playing inside mid on an AFL team against the best competition, it's bloody well hard to find some time. So I think he really, really found himself a new gear halfway through that season. Tackling pressure. There's a great, they're on Instagram, I think they're on Facebook as well, the James Rowbottom fan club does a really, really great job. They're great guys over there, but they do a really good job of just showing what he does off the ball. So the follow-up pressure that he has, it's fine to, put a tackle on someone, but then to get up and then follow that up with 3 or 4 extra bits of tackle pressure and then get your hands on someone after all of that. Rowie is doing huge work around the ball. So I think this year, looking to make him an integral part, if he wasn't already, but a really, really big integral part of our success for this year.
Yeah, look, I think your point about the kicking inefficiency there, I think, a big part of that is game structure and game team balance, and then reading players. So you see Warner hack it out of the contest, and it may go to a player, it may not. But you see Rowie do it and it doesn't go to a player, and then you say, oh, he's kicking inefficiently. But I think he gets a little bit of a bad rap there. But I think that as the team gels more and more, this very young team gels. He's 22, Rowie, right? He's 22.
So young.
So, I think that's going to improve, and he's going to make better decisions going forward. What I love about him is, his calmness, his work ethic, and I just think that he's going to be a key player for us, hopefully for many years.
I'm a big fan of the grind. He moves from one contest to another. He might make a mistake in one contest, just moves on to the other one and just does the best he can in that one, and does the same thing with the next contest. And he's just love of the grind, a la Parker, I guess is what I love about him.
Very hard worker. Yeah.
All right, mate. Number 7, Harry Cunningham, listed here as defender, but played up forward for. Arguably the first time ever against Carlton in the preseason game last week. So, mate, what do we say about Mr. Dependable? Does he have himself a walk-on role, or is he up for grabs, you think?
I think he probably starts, given that he was, he's played such a part of the preseason in this role, and you'd think it was that role that Clark is leaving open at the moment due to his preseason injury. So, and the fact that as we've already talked about extensively, like how difficult it is to get a spot in our back line, that someone as favourably liked by Horse as Cunningham is, and also a fantastic clubman himself, that you want one of these older players on the field, the more experienced players on the field, and you just find a spot for him. And if he's in there kicking 2 goals a game, then he is that type of player. He's that other player that we're talking about that's keeping Wixie and some of these juniors out of the team. So so I think he probably starts round 1, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think he starts. The only question is, does he start up forward or up back? From all accounts, it looks like he might be up forward, so a very different look. One thing we do know about Harry is that whether he plays on the wing, as he's done a few times, or plays out back, or has to end up marking a player, or gets a bit loose, he just seems to make the right decisions. Execution is tough, especially when you've got that much pressure going on you. So he's had a couple of moments there, but there is not a question about how smart of a footballer he is and his effort around the ground. So, yeah, I see Harry's got himself a name on the board as long as he's healthy. Just depends on where that is, really. And he might be a swingman, not that traditional key swingman, but definitely maybe a half back, half forward kind of swingman as well, kind of rolling around.
He's a little bit like Heaney and Fox, these types of players that are pretty fit, so they can pretty much go anywhere. You know, they can go small defender, they can go halfback, they can go in the middle or the wing, and now he's adding, crumbing pressure forward to his repertoire. So,
resume,
and we know that he really is loved by Horse. I think that given that he was named there in that, certainly in that Blues game and playing that role and bobbed up and kicked a couple, I think he's probably locked for round one, to be honest. But
I agree with you. You wouldn't waste a spot like that in pre-season just for the fun of it. Like, you're not trying to fill in a spot. You're trying to see how someone goes, and he's probably
team balance. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
Oh.
All right. Oof, here we go. Number 6, the Jumbo Jet.
Jumbo Jet.
Logan McDonald. For all the other fans out there, Jumbo Jet was keyed upon Logan McDonald by our own Jules. He suggested that he is ready to take off. So, mate, last season was a pretty good season for Logan, albeit he didn't probably score as many as we would have liked. When I say liked, as in like what we really would have seen him just blow out of the place. But he had a good season next to Buddy over there whenever he could play, and seemed to be showing a different style of football with these long leads and things, and a nice, good, big booting kick, mate. Like, what do we see from Logan this year? Is this going to be a big breakout year for Logan, or do we still need to see some more time from the 20-year-old?
I think he needs to have a decent year. I think we would love for him to have a decent year. I don't think he's under any pressure at all. I think it's just that it's almost like sort of like not a maxim, but it's so well known now that he tends to play second fiddle when Buddy's out there, even though Buddy really is playing second fiddle to him because he's attracting more defenders. But he doesn't play as well when he's not the big man.
The key guy.
Although, you could go through the games and look at all the stats, but it's just that one game where he was on his own and he kicked 3 and looked $1 million, and then Buddy came back the next week and he had like 5 touches. So I think that's what Swans fans remember. And he also, he probably had, he was squeezed out of the grand final team, very painstakingly.
Most people's upset,
Yeah. So look, but that's because, if you're going to be cutthroat, he's playing a role but not maybe getting enough touch. I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, in the preseason games, he was running. He just ran like a maniac. He like at one point he was like he was like a key defender, helping out in the defensive 50. Like he was just running and running and running. He's obviously had a bit of a haircut, so the jet is streamlined.
Yeah, I noticed that he's starting to shave his legs now, if anyone cares. So he's definitely going for some aerodynamics at the moment.
It's all about how he glides through the air, mate. And
that's right, mate. Aerodynamics. Ask Cadell Evans; he'll tell you all about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So look, I think that I personally would like to see him kick somewhere between 20 and 30 goals this year.
I was going to say the exact same thing. Yep.
I mean, probably between 10 and 20 is more realistic. If you think he's still 20, he's still a key forward developing. So 20, 30 is probably over. It's probably like unrealistic, to be honest, but that's what I'm hoping for. And I think that can happen if he is the key big man in the games when Buddy and or Reed isn't there. But I think it's really, really important to his development to have just to kick some goals at the top level.
Look, 195 centimeters at 95 kilos. He's already a big boy, and as you suggest, and we've seen from the video on the Swans website, he is running very, very hard. He's trying to challenge players that he shouldn't be challenging up the 2K running mark. So I don't see why we shouldn't be seeing him with 20 to 30 goals this year. I would love to see him really step up. And I agree with you, and I think we don't necessarily have to see him explode out this year to suggest that he doesn't have a big future ahead of him. He's 20 years old, for crying out loud. He's got a big future ahead of him. There's not a doubt about that. It's just a matter of making sure he develops in the right way. And he's a key forward. He's going to take a long time to develop, and we're already seeing some really great signs of him. So
you can build a premiership team around a player like Logan, right? But right. I mean, sorry, we kind of, as I said earlier, we got to the grand final probably a little bit earlier than we all expected. But I think we're still definitely in the window, but we also, it's hard to say if our window has started prematurely or we're in it or we're still actually a couple of seasons away, because if you think about core, it'd be great to win a flag this year, as early as this year, given the senior players that are there and deserve it. But, if it doesn't work out like that, then you'd think that, we're not far away from our premiership window with that core, that middle age bracket core players of, Mills, Papley, Heaney, Hayward, Florent, all those guys, and to be able to do that, you need, goal kicking key forwards. And Logan is it. He was a high draft pick. He was a highly touted junior, kicking 50 goals in his junior year in the Western Australian League. So it's just about time in the saddle and confidence, and then actually just getting some runs on the board. And I think this is the year that it can happen and probably needs to happen.
I would love to see it happen, especially the fact that apparently he's got a brother who's arguably just as good as he is. So we would love to see both the McDonalds over here in Sydney steal them away from the WA crowd. So let's hope.
We've got a thing for brothers.
Together.
We've got a thing for brothers at the moment. So let's make it work. Yeah.
Hopefully sisters as well. Rowbottom sisters are very handy player. Hopefully she gets to AFLW. All right. Number 5, Isaac Heaney. Another stellar year. Would I arguably maybe not his best year, nonetheless still made All-Australian for the first time next to his mate Callum. Mate, what do we say about Isaac? Had an absolute stellar year, elite across the board, skill sets to boot, good size, runs everywhere, does all the right things for a footballer. Do we see just another stellar year from the Heat?
I think we do. Kick 49 goals. You basically used as this, just undefendable forward, but can also go into the middle. But I think he plays his best footy up front just because he's so hard to match up against. And I think that so long as he stays fit, because he just absolutely punishes himself. Like he just runs and runs, right? Yeah. Some of the defensive support that he can pull off is just incredible. But I think he all going well, should have another great year, and he's one of these clear leaders of the club, and he's got a lot riding on everything, and a lot of expectation again on his shoulders. So want him to just play his natural game, and I think we should be in the mix. So it would be incredible if you could kick another 50 goals. But I mean that's like Charlie Cameron type level. If you're kicking 50 goals as effectively a small forward, if you can do that multiple years in a row, then he will be one of the best small forwards of the game, even though he's a medium forward, right?
And even then, he doesn't spend all of his time up in the forwards, right? We watch him play every week, and he rolls back and forth when he sees that the game is kind of needing him out the back. You'll see him taking a great mark out the back when he needs to. He's kind of got that Millsy ability to just read how the game is moving and then try to propel it a bit forward. So he's just absolute gun, the face of the Swans at the moment, because he's just so damn gorgeous. So he's just going to make it happen again another year, I think. And I don't think he's had any disappointing seasons, but it seems like he's just prime of age and playing his best football. So
funnily enough, I just noticed this there. Both Buddy and Heaney had the same amount of behinds last year. They had 28 behinds. So Buddy kicked 51-28 and Heaney kicked 49-28. So, I mean, if they were both a little bit more accurate, they'd probably both have almost contended for the Coleman. But
it's gone for 60-something,
Yeah, but just, clearly they're our most potent forwards. That's why I'm saying if Logan can, bear some of that and really step up, then, there's less need for at least Buddy to fill that, especially given that he's probably not going to be playing as much. So we've got to find goals, and that's why it's so important for Logan to get that confidence.
Yep, it's a numbers game. You're looking at Buddy to drop down in playing time, go closer down to 30, high 20s in goals, and expecting Logan to pick some of that up. So I guess we want to see. All right, mates. Speaking of something totally different, a player that didn't quite have a position in the team, was no doubt a talent, saw himself in the VFL absolutely racking up huge numbers with not a space to blow up to in the AFL. Then Horse had the genius idea to make him a tagger we are talking about none other than number 4, Ryan Clamps Clark. Mate, Clarkie had I don't know, a season for the ages, coming in and just creating a role for himself and then just not letting fucking go, which is, I guess, his name, Clamps. What do we say about him?
Yeah, I don't have much more to add, to be honest, mate. It was quite incredible the way he worked into the team and then held on to his spot and played a role that was just so effective for us. So, as we've already said, like, he's injured at the moment, and he's probably giving up that spot, but it sounds like they're going to roll with the role, and that's where Harry Cunningham comes in. But look, it's unfortunate that he, because I think he has been pretty fit over the years. He just hasn't been able to crack into the team, and finally, when he does, in such a spectacular fashion, I guess AFL can be cruel like that. But I think he'll definitely feature this year for us, and I hope he can bring some of that form that he played last year. Yep. And I'm not quite sure when that will be, because I don't really know the extent of his injury.
Yeah, look, he did, I don't know, arguably won a big chunk of the game for us against the Pies in shutting down Dacos, limiting his impact a lot. And he did that a fair few times in the season. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think we see him getting a role on the ground, maybe not every single game, but where the matchup makes sense. Yeah, he's the first choice for a lockdown for sure.
Definitely.
All right, mate. Number 3, Dylan Stevens. Started off last year, got a fair bit of game time and just wasn't quite right, wasn't quite defending, seemed a little bit headless at points, especially when we're playing the defensive game. Went into the VFL, worked on that part of his game, came back and just was absolutely stellar. And as far as I was concerned, a walk-in start into the team. How did you see his game last year, and do you see him basically continuing that form into this one?
Yeah, look, I think he's primed for another big year. Really, I think this could be his breakout year. I know, this will be his 4th year playing, but really he debuted in the coronavirus affected 2020, and he was always slight coming in. He's a running machine. He's killed all 2K time trials this preseason. He's put on bulk. Yep. Right, he's 80 kilos at the moment, so that's pretty good. He'll keep getting bigger and bigger, and his running is elite, and he's just going to go from strength to strength. Like, I'm not worried about him at all. I think he's going to lock the wing down like we were all hoping he may have earlier, but I think this is the year where he can just throw his name up on the board.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident. I'm pretty confident about Dill this year.
I agree with everything you said there, mate. I'm not going to add any more. I think he's a lock-in for that wing role for all the reasons you mentioned.
Yeah.
All right. We are getting to the very, very peak of it all. Number 2, Hayden McLean, another name we've mentioned a fair few times, especially lower down in the higher up in the numbers when we were talking about Amati and Hicks and Reedy and the position that they play as tools around the ground. Look, Hayden McLean got himself a fair bit of playing time, more so the year before last and last year. 24 years old, 197 centimeters, and almost 100 kilos. McLean is a big lad and runs, as we've mentioned in the past, runs a lot and runs hard. And I think that kind of effort is not lost on the selectors and the coaches. And he gets himself a spot for that effort over some of the other players. Mate, we see him a bit more with Hickey seemingly potentially a bit more injured this year with another year under his old belt, and with Sammy Reid with less time. Is McLean's year this year? How do you feel about him?
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know, to be honest. And I'll just correct. I said Buddy kicked 51. He kicked 52 last year. I want to get in before you correct me. With Logan, like I just read a thing there saying he had 68, 70% accuracy. I was like, oh, that's pretty good. But he kicked 10 goals, 3. So that is accurate, but it's probably not impactful enough. Not enough kicking. So Logan, in his fewer games or similar amount of games, kicked 15 goals, even though he also had, I think he probably had a similar amount of behinds, to be honest, didn't he, Logan? Sorry, we're on him. Yeah, Logan kicked 15 goals, 16 behinds. So there's 30 goals in him. He's just got to be 100% accurate. But back to Haydo. Look, I just don't know I don't know. Is he a full? Is he a key forward, or is he a ruck forward and therefore like a depth player, or can he stand up and can he form like an exciting full forward combo with Logan?
Yeah,
Can
look,
can we have the double? Can we have the Big Mac up front?
he plays a very like, Logan has long leads. He's a long lead kind of player, kind of a Ben Brown, if you will, kind of move around the ground kind of player. From what we've seen so far, of course, he's still yet to make his real impact on the game, but just for what we know, a bit more of him. Whereas McLean is a bit more traditional. He's going to go 1-on-1 or 1-on-2. I mean, he's been up against some pretty big defenders and managed to outmuscle them along the way. So I have a really high rap over McLean. I think he's not a lock, obviously, for the game, but I would love to see him really solidify that role. I would love to see him be the first person to choose when we need someone in the forwards there in that kind of position, and to allow for him to roam a bit. I think his other role, although he was running a lot, was running up and down the forwards to try to get some positioning. Whereas I want to see him, as you mentioned, kind of playing that kind of a ruck forward positioning, go out into those wings or into the corner pocket, and make a contest to get his hands onto the ball to try to get down to the wing. So he's got a great role in him that I think Semi Reed does so well when he's playing healthy. Hayden's got a lot of those skill sets, got a great set of hands, good size about him, gets around well, just hasn't quite got that impact onto the game as yet. But I personally think I would like to see him, of all players this year, make something of it. So that's where I stand with it.
Yeah, I'm with you, mate. I'm with you. I just really don't know. But yeah, I want him to have a good crack, nevertheless.
Yep. All right, we are at number 1, and there's no finer way to finish off this 46-1 preseason player chat than none other than Chad Warner. So Chad had an absolute electric and stellar 2022 season where he put the entire AFL world on notice with his dashing runs from the middles, playing beside Parker and Rowbottom for the season. Mate, do we see another stellar year from Chaddy Warner? Does the competition keep up? What happens here?
Yeah, I hope so. Look, he's still so young, right? And interestingly, he's almost the same specs as Dill Stevens, but you wouldn't guess that, would you? He's 185 centimetres, Dill's 184. Warner's 82 and Dill's 80. But he just comes across as so much stronger, doesn't he? But in the preseason games, he took the game on in typical Chad style, and he got caught a couple of times, I'll be honest, by Georgie Hewitt, who we all love and miss. Well, I do. And Matt Kennedy as well. So they're pretty big players, but they caught him a couple of times. But Chad's the kind of player, his instinct player. So you just say back yourself in and take the game on. And if you get caught holding it, so be it. Because the time what he can create if he gets through is just is quite magical. So look, I think we just keep backing in his game style. I think all clubs are going to have done a lot more homework on him. So they'll probably, maybe put a hard tag on or try and, sort of figure out how they can minimise his impact in other ways. But yeah, I think that I'm hopeful he can carry on and everything he showed us last year gives you the feeling that he's got that in him. It wasn't an anomaly, that he's just sort of really getting started. And I think there's big raps on him from Damo, the AFL reporter, who's saying he's going to win the Brownlow this year, but he's up against a pretty fierce competition in his own team. Yeah. Look, it's just so exciting. He's just so exciting. He's such an awesome player.
And like that midfield that we have, I think it all comes down to a bit of a Swiss Army knife, right? You have your different tools for different occasions, and you want to make sure you can apply pressure onto the other competition and insiders from different ways. And Chad, with his speed and explosiveness, was, I don't know, a tool in the Swiss Army knife that a lot of other teams don't necessarily have, and we're lucky to have. And Papley kind of also walked in there and gave something somewhat similar when he did have some infield minutes. So, does he have another stellar AFL booming season this year, as you suggest? Maybe the competition figures him out a little bit more, puts some bodies in the way. But I'm going to say some pretty big name here, but they tried to do the same thing with Dangerfield, but Dangerfield always managed to find ways to get himself around, although Dangerfield's a fair bit bigger. But yeah, there's room for him to continue doing what he's doing and doing it very well. So
yeah, and he's another one of these players. He's kicked 20 goals, 24 behind. So he's just so impactful, and how awesome that you've got this midfield bull that just screams out of the center square and can kick goals like amazing goals, right? And some of the highlights reel of last year is just AFL topping, right?
Yeah.
And if he can go 20, 30 goals again, but still give us that sort of that clearance work and that burst out of the middle, then we're going to go a long way. Look, in summary, mate, we've got a lot of competition for defence. We've got a really young midfield, exciting midfield. We're really, really short on rucks, and God knows what we're going to do in the forward line.
We've got some questions in the forward line.
We've got amazing kickers coming out of our defensive 50. We've got genuinely exciting young players with some old heads in the middle, getting us some good forward momentum. I'm just trying to figure out how we can convert. And if we can make sure we can convert the level we did last year, because one of the reasons we got to the finals and did so well is because we had a good spread of goal kickers. And as long as we can do that this year, and obviously the big caveat on that is Buddy and Sam. Not that we rely on Sam as much as Buddy for goals, but that for me is the big question out of this preseason.
Yep, that's right.
For me, just in summary.
No, I agree with all of that. I think that's perfectly said. Look, it'd be silly not to quickly mention the coaches for this year. Longmire, of course, signing up for another 2 years. Already our longest serving coach, and now just cranking on another 2 years just to show off at this point. Supported by Dean Cox and, of course, the clubman Jared McVeigh and Don Pike helping out there, and thankfully sticking around with the Swans for another year and not going elsewhere. Beside ex-Swan Ben Matthews. So we've got ourselves a fantastic coaching set of old heads in Don and Longmire, great players in Cox, McVeigh and Matthews as well, and good leaders out there, which is particularly important, as we've mentioned 100 times on this potty. A good young crew. We've got a lot of youth in there, and probably a lot of training and a lot of learning to go along this season, as long as the other ones as well.
Definitely, and I think it was it Leon Cameron who was made head of Academy?
Academy, that's right. So Leon Cameron, who the ex-GWS coach, and I personally felt he was a very good coach and had a lot of experience, has decided to take a step down and move on to the Academy. And you can't really say you can't say anything bad about that, can you? I think that's just a win-win.
We've got an AFL coach coaching the Academy.
That's right.
We've got 3 head coaches in the club at the moment.
Yeah, you got the bloke who was coaching Toby Green, Tom Green,
all those guys,
Cameron. Who else?
Kelly, Taranto, Perryman, Whitfield, all these gun players, right?
Yeah.
And so that's probably where the criticism is. You've got a team of Ferraris and you couldn't get the job done. But he went to the grand final, and not every coach can say that. We're just lucky that the horse gets us there so much, often, as we just got to convert. But it just shows there's a lot of talent at the club. Not just on the field. But right. Hopefully that'll have a positive effect from underneath and keep giving us these academy prospects that we so rightly deserve, if there's any non-Swans listening, given the amount of money and time that we put into the academy in order to keep the game as popular as it is in rugby league and union heartland. But Yep. Anyway, well, that's the preseason 2023.
That's the 2023 preseason wrap-up of all the players, 46-1. We've been rambling on for just about 2 hours now. So
Jesus, really? Okay.
We'll cut this in the middle. We're not going to have this as one big one. But thank you so much for listening through. On behalf of the Bevy, we'd love to say thank you once again for listening. We've got a big season ahead of us. Make sure to follow us on all the socials, where we will be previewing the games to come, reviewing the games that have been, and all the fun Swan stuff and in between. But until next time, up the Bloods and can you Swannies?